Alright, this is our first lesson on algebraic proof, and it's just kind of getting started with some things. The first part that we're going to do is just basically solving an equation in a proof format, and when you do that, you just have to give a justification, a reason for each step that you take in solving that proof, okay, or solving that equation, excuse me. So here are our properties of equality. We have addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That basically says, like on the addition one, if you have an equation and you add the same amount to both sides of the equation, then it's still equal, okay? So when we add something to the same side of the equation, it's the addition property of equality. If you subtract the same amount from both sides, it's the subtraction property, and so forth with multiplication and division. All right, reflexive, symmetric, and transitive are probably new to you, okay? But reflexive, symmetric, and transitive we're going to be using a lot over the next week or two. Reflexive just means basically that something is equal to itself. So when I say reflexive, think of reflection. When you look in a mirror, you see a reflection of yourself. So when you use the reflexive property, it's the same thing on both sides. Okay, sorry about that. So the symmetric property just swaps. If you have A equals B, then B equals A. They just swap sides. The transitive is the kicker. That's the one that everybody seems to get mixed up on. But it's basically going from A and through B to get to C. So if A is equal to B and then B is equal to C, then that means that A would be equal to C. So that's the transitive property. In substitution, when two things are equal to each other, then you can plug in one for the other one. And then the distributive property is just, distribute. Okay, when we're doing proofs on segments, one of the things that we use a lot is called the segment addition postulate. We've already talked about this in class, and it basically says if you have a segment, and we say that segment AB, that length of that segment AB, plus the length of segment BC, that would give you the whole segment AC. So in other words, if AB was 3 and BC was 5, then the whole thing AC would be 8. Okay? So we know we know how to apply that, but we need to know what it's called now. So it's the segment addition postulate, and it'll look something like this. AB plus BC equals AC. We also have the same thing for angle addition postulate that says part plus part equals whole. So if I told you this angle was 30 degrees and this angle was 50 degrees and the whole thing is 80 degrees. Okay? Again, we know that. It's just a matter of knowing what it's called. It's the angle addition postulate that says part of an angle plus another part of the angle equals the whole angle. All right. We'll look at example number 1 now, and it is 4x minus 7 equals 3x plus 2. So when you set up a proof, you're just going to simply make a little chart here with 2 columns. The first column is for your steps. The second column is for your reasons. So when you have an equation, it's very simple. You just start with what you're given. So you start with your equation, and the reason is given. And most of the time when we do proofs, that's usually the first thing you do. Whatever is given to you in the problem, that goes first, and the reason is given. Most of the time. All right, when I solve this equation, the first thing that I want to do, I always get my x's together first. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. So if I subtract 3x from both sides, then that gives me the equation x minus 7 equals 2. And what I did was I subtracted the same amount from both sides of the equation. So that is the subtraction property of equality. And you can abbreviate. I'm okay with that. All right. Now, the next step I need to do is add 7 to both sides. So that's going to give me x equals 9. So I added the same amount. So that's the addition property of equality. All right. And we're done. We got x equals 9. So that is our proof for that problem. Notice that for every step I took, I gave a reason. And everything lines up. Okay, you have blue lines on your paper, please use those. Okay, if it is sloppy and I can't read it, I'm not going to give you credit. For every step you take, make sure you give a reason. Don't do this. Don't go through and solve the equation and then go back and try to figure out the reasons. That would be hard to do. Okay, just do it step by step. Write down your step, write down your reason. Write down your step, write down your reason, and so forth. Okay, so for this one, again, first thing we're going to do is write down the equation and the word given. And then obviously we need to distribute that 2. So we got to get rid of those parentheses. So distribute the 2, that gives me 2x minus 6, and then everything else stays the same. So that reason that I would say is the distributive property. Now, also when you're solving an equation, you don't need to do 10 things at one time. Okay, you need to take it step by step. So that step I use the distributive property. The next step I need to do, I need to combine my like terms. I need to put negative 6 plus 5 together. So that's going to give me 2x minus 1 equals 4x minus 5. And when you combine your like terms, we're going to call that simplify, because you're just simplifying your equation. Alright, the next thing, I'm going to get my x's together. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. So that gives me negative 1 equals 2x minus 5. So the subtraction property of equality is what we did there. Okay? And then add 5 to both sides. So that is the addition property of equality. And the next step is just to divide by 2. And you get x equals 2. So that is the division property of equality. Again, you can abbreviate over here. For property of equality, I would just put POE. Notice subtraction and substitution both start with SUB. If you put SUB on your paper, I don't know if you meant subtraction or substitution. So go a little bit further than that. Okay, subtraction. Don't just put sub. Alright, here's another example. What is the temperature in degrees Fahrenheit when it is 15 degrees Celsius? It says solve that equation for F and justify each step. Okay, so obviously our first step is to write down the given. So we're going to write down our given equation. And we also know that it is 15 degrees Celsius. So in place of C, we're going to write 15. So that is our substitution property. And then after that, it's just basically simplifying. 9 divided by 5 times 15, and then plus 32. So you can simplify that all in one step if you would like, and get 59. Okay? Now, notice we didn't do multiplication property or addition property because I didn't multiply both sides of the equation. All I did was simplify that side. So if you're not doing something to both sides of the equation, it's not one of those addition property of equality or multiplication property of equality. You're just doing it to one side, so you're simplifying. Alright, and here's another example here. Write down the given equation, plug in your 86 for your F, so that's substitution, and then simplify. 86 minus 32 is 54, and then 5/9 times 54 would be 30. Okay, here's another one. Okay, we have this diagram, and it says write a justification for each step. So the first thing I'm going to start you off with, I'm going to go ahead and tell you NO is equal to NM plus MO. Now what tells me that? Well, let's look at it. NO, that is this segment, is equal to NM, which is this part, plus MO, which is this part. So part plus part equals whole. So that would be our segment addition postulate. And then they just plugged in, so that's substitution. And then it's just a matter of solving the equation. So I'm going to simplify that side and put my like terms together. So 2x plus 5x will give me 5x, and that will be simplify. And then the next thing you want to do is get your x's together. So I would subtract 4x from both sides, so that's the subtraction property of equality. And then add 9 to both sides, so that's the addition property of equality. Alright, we'll do this one more and then I'll stop the video. Alright, write a justification for each step. So again, we've got two angles, and we know, or we've got one large angle. So I know this angle plus that angle is going to give me the whole angle. So we need to write that down. And we're going to say the measure of angle ABC, the whole angle, is equal to the measure of angle ABD plus the measure of angle DBC. And that's called your angle addition postulate. And then just substitute in. ABC is 8x. ABD is 3x plus 5, and DBC is 6x minus 16. So that's substitution. And then put your like terms together, so that's simplify. So that's going to give you 9x minus 11 for simplify. And then I would get my x's together again. So I'm just going to subtract 9x from both sides. So I have negative x equals negative 11. And since I subtracted the same amount from both sides, that's the subtraction property of equality. And then just divide by -1 or multiply by -1, and you get x equals 11.